Okay, so here we are. And I don't even know what week it is. Is it the fourth week or the fifth week? I'm not sure. I think it might be the fourth week. Do you believe that? But here we are, closing the circle of the teachings for troubled times on the Bhagavad Gita with the help and the foundation of the Bhagavad Gita. So as we come to the close of this teaching, I want to point out a few main points that I have and Krishna has talked about throughout the text, and maybe questions have arrived or comments, or just, you may have heard this through the weeks, and that's what Krishna has done. He has imprinted along the way. So if it sounds familiar, good. I want it to sound familiar. I'm going to move this out a little bit. And there we go. So one of the points that I want to make is that in this text, Krishna mentions the word yoga at least 100 times, literally about 100 times or more. And he mentions yoga in different ways. And we've already established that yoga, the Sanskrit word yoga, comes from the root word yuj, which means to unite, but it also means to yoke. And so it's widely known that it means union, and it also means to yoke, to what we're binding ourselves to. And Krishna's talking about oneness, that it's uniting us to the one. But you could look at it a few different ways too, and sometimes it may seem a little controversial, because one of the things that Krishna tells Arjuna is that if Arjuna remembers who he is at his essence, at his essential core, then he will remember that he is divine, that he is made of the divine, and that he is the divine. And so in one way, Krishna is telling Arjuna, if you remember that you're the divine, then you could do anything like I can. You could create your world. You can co-create your world. You can, whatever your heart's desire is. That's one thing he says. But on the other hand, he says to him, but you know what? I'm God and you're not. So that's only true to a degree. So there's this little bit of a degree that he has, that he talks about. And one of the things that, why it's to a degree that Krishna reminds Arjuna of, are these three qualities of the gunas that we've talked about. And the gunas literally mean qualities, and the gunas are changeable. So there's a quality that is impacted by nature. It is nature. It's impacted by our thoughts, by our culture. And so these qualities are changeable. And if we have these qualities within us, the light, the fire, the heaviness, the darkness, then by nature, we're changeable. And so what Krishna is telling him, you remember who you are, remember that you're divine, but you also have these qualities and you're changeable. So that's going to impact you. And I don't have that. As God the One, I don't have that problem. But for you, it could be a problem because of the changeability of your nature. It will change the way you make choices. So it's kind of interesting conversation that Krishna has with Arjuna. So what he is also telling him, one of the points that's about the Gita is that yoga is a process of learning your true nature, remembering who you are. And we talked about this, I think last week or the week before, about becoming and recognizing your authentic self. And maybe we could digress here a little bit, because we had a really interesting conversation a couple of weeks ago. I think Phyllis brought it up about authenticity. And authenticity doesn't mean that we just step out there into the world in all of our glory without any thought to how we impact each other's lives, our own life and each other's lives. And so that leads me to this idea of karma yoga that Krishna is talking to Arjuna about again. And he reminds Arjuna that karma yoga is action, and our actions influence and impact and implicate ourselves and the choices we make and each other. And that because karma yoga, and because we are these beings that have these changeable qualities within us, karma yoga action is messy. So we can really mess things up, not always intentionally. And karma yoga isn't just to make a mess of things, but it creates brokenness. Things aren't just so perfect that there's no cracks in the seams. I always think of Leonard Cohen's song about that's how the light gets in, because our hearts are cracked. That's how the light gets in. And that's how the light shines out, because we are beings that are changeable, and we crack and we break and we're fragile. And so all of that impacts how we come to life and how we make decisions in our life. And so because of that, in one way, while Krishna is saying, come back to oneness, we really can't go back to oneness, because life is fractal. And in some way it's fractured. And so because it's fractured and it's fractal, that we may put the pieces back together, but there's the seams. And it's in the seams of life that the beauty lies. You know, sometimes it's scary and sometimes it's challenging, and yet that from a tantric perspective, it is in the cracks and it is in the seams that more could happen, that more life could be lived, that more choice can be made. So I think it's really a beautiful teaching. And it's a power, of course. Karma yoga is a power to be reckoned with. And we have to, Krishna warns Arjuna, we have to find the skills to carry on in spite of the messiness, because of the messiness, however you want to look at it. The yoga is actually, well, how do we carry on then? And isn't that where we are right now, right? We're in a big mess. We're in some fractal and fractured times. And really, we're all individually and on a global scale, really trying to figure out the most skillful actions. It's skillful to stay home. It's skillful to wear a mask. It's skillful to whatever it is. And then as we move through this and create a new normal, what will be the new things that we have to think about? The new ways to move through life, because another messiness will happen. So what he's saying too is that because of karma yoga and this fracturedness, that there is imperfection. And I say this a lot in my teachings, that is imperfection is actually the perfection. That is actually the fullness. That we're really not looking to not have, some movement. We're looking to live life fully. So let me see what else I want to talk about. There's a chapter towards the end here in the Bhagavad Gita where Krishna goes on and on and on and on about demonic qualities, about different people's demonic qualities. And one way you could look at it is that we all have shadow sides. We all have baggage. And so that's what he's really referring to, that we need to look at and not be afraid of shining the light of awareness on our shadow pieces, on the parts that maybe aren't so pretty, the parts of us that you'd rather not show up. And some from a depth psychology point of view, there are some shadows that you never really want to surface, and they really won't. They'll stay down where they need to. But on this other level, there's a lot of shadows, those blind spots, those accountability things that we really do need to look at. And that it is through the yoga and it is through the light of awareness that those shadows will come up, and we'll see the baggage. And that's when we can make advantage of the shadow. We can alchemize that. We could shift that. And that's really important. And he says how we do that. Krishna then says how we're able to do that is to create more and to alchemize is through jnana yoga. And remember, that's knowledge. Because karma yoga without knowledge is simply blindly going through life, unskillfully moving through life. Jnana yoga knowledge without karma yoga is just head stuff, head bubble. Lots and lots of text and lots of knowledge and notebooks and intellectualizing and analyzing, but then there's no skillful action. So combined, when you can shine the light of awareness, that is jnana yoga, and it helps you to make more skillful choices, then it's this communion, this weaving of knowledge and wisdom and action, jnana yoga and karma yoga. And so he's talking about those shadows or negative emotions, and that if we don't shine the light of awareness, if we don't have any commitment to self-knowledge, then they become unchecked, and they really become disturbances in our life. And you could be bet your bottom dollar that they will come bite us in the butt at some point or another, if we don't really start to unpack some of this with kindness and love. And that's where bhakti yoga comes in. So bhakti, well, one of the things too, I want to go back for a moment, is that the point that of dharma, let me just say, did I talk about this yet? Yeah, okay. So sorry. The point that the Bhagavad Gita wants to make too is that when you're doing your dharma, you are creating a life of meaning and purpose and a meaning, a well-lived life. That's dharma. Doesn't matter what it looks like. It matters that whatever we're doing in life, we're showing up fully, doing it to the best of our ability, with skillful choices, and that is actually what the point of the Gita is do your dharma, do it is be your best self, try to learn to be the best version and ever unfolding version of you, and do your dharma, because we're meant to go from surviving to thriving. And I've said this the other day, but I think it bears worth repeating, that there's so many people on the planet that all they can really think about is surviving. And even now, there's people that have had, moving forward in their life, and then because of what's happened here, they're really in survival mode. And we are so privileged and blessed that we have the opportunity to even study, to be in the sacred circle, and to be able to be in communion with one another and rise up from the inside. What a great gift that we have as a community. So I wanted to just remind us that even sheltering in, we're thriving. And so Krishna also instructs Arjuna about karma yoga, and he tells him that there's three sort of actions of karma yoga. There's the actions that are necessary. We have to sleep, and then we get up and we have to feed ourselves. And there's necessary actions that don't really take a whole lot of thought, except maybe, Karen was thoughtful about eating her broccoli and garlic. Like, I want something healthy. You need to eat healthy. So but we do things that are just sort of rote. they're necessary. And then we do things that are occasional. You know, sometimes we do it, sometimes we don't. But then there's the actions that we take because we want to, because we're lit up, because we have desire to do them. That's the privilege. That's the piece of action that Krishna says, and that's the privilege, and beware. Because it's the desires of the heart and the desires of our wants that can get us in trouble. If we don't put self-knowledge and jnana yoga and we put that together, then we could be led astray and moved from our core essence when we just follow desire blindly. I'm sure you know people have, you know, in your life sometime. So he says, make sure that your desires don't necessarily, that they lift not only yourself up, but maybe they're not for the greater good, but they also don't do any harm. So can you, I don't want to say legitimize, but can you feel confident in yourself that this desire, this creation, this, whatever this is, thing that you want, that you're moving towards, that you want to do, is not a detriment to others? If you could do that and feel good about that in yourself, then you're doing your dharma and your action is skillful and karma, and you're not creating any more karma for yourself, which is kind of a nice thing, I think. So, yeah. Also, like, don't, when you're following the heart of your desires, make sure that, and I talked about this before, that you want to make the choices that are skillful and you want a good end result, but you're not manipulative in your actions that are going to get you just to that end result. You're going to be intentional about your actions, and you're going to do everything you can to create this intentional process that hopefully the end result will give you what your heart's desire is, but you're not going to death grip it. You're not going to kind of try and control it, because we can't, right? So karma yoga, there's also a word that I love, and it also sometimes kind of works me, is karma yoga is an entanglement. So when we're in relationship with people, when we're in relationship with our desires, we become entangled with them. And that's not necessarily a bad thing when we're aware of what the entanglements are. And also when those entanglements perhaps can be destructive. So karma yoga is the freedom to be who we want, the freedom to create the life that we want. And jnana yoga then will help us do that with wisdom. And then he also talks about pausing, which we're all, I call it the freeze frame of our life, right? We're all in this greater pause. And Krishna says that it's in the pause that we really could stop and assess. Like, maybe a lot of people, I've been hearing from different things I'm reading and different people, that people are reevaluating when they can move back into life. Is like, is this what I really want to do with the rest of my life? Or do I want to cut some things out? Or what do I want my life to look at when I get to really engage in the world on a different level again? So the pause, we could create the pause ourselves and really have that moment to self-assess. And that is also jnana yoga. And jnana yoga raises the questions of who am I? You know, that self-knowledge isn't just book learning and thinking about cosmology, but it's like, who am I? Who are you, Karen? Who are you, Kath? Who are you, Jana, Rhonda, Phyllis, Donna, all of us? Who are we? There's the similarity, and then there's the individualness. So we are one in the sense that we are all of this human family doing our best to live a good life. And we're all very individual and different. And so it asks, who am I? And what I think is really important, and at this particular time, it's so even more valuable, is who can I be? Who do I want to be? Who could I become? When I know that I have this dosha and I'm prone, or I'm when I'm out of alignment, that I'm more apt to be angry or pissy, or I'm more apt to be fearful or anxious. If I know that about myself, I have a little bit of a map, a roadmap. I have a little bit of a guide. And so when we, and that the gunas are changeable, when I know that about myself, then I could really start to think about, who do I want to be? You know, what could be the next unfoldment of who I am? I think it's a valuable question anytime, and it's a particularly valuable question at this time in history and what we're all living through together. So then Krishna brings in Bhakti Yoga again. So he's talking about Bhakti Yoga, and we've already established that Bhakti is love and devotion. And there's another piece to that. Krishna talks about, it's also about your commitment. How committed are you to what it is you care about? How deep are you going to go to make sure what you care about is taken care of? You know, your own self. How deeply are you going to look at your own self and do your self-care, whether it's walking, whatever it is, taking care of yourself. But it's this idea too of being committed to making connection. And I mentioned this a few times. I've spoken to many of you individually, and even on Tuesday's class, that I, like many people, am choosing consciously to not say social distancing. I want to say that we're physically distanced, because I don't want to be socially distanced. I want to see you. I wish I could see you, Kath. You know, I want to see your face. I want to know that we're in communion. I want to know that we are connected. I want my heart to feel that. I'm committed to that. So how much commitment are you putting into the things that you really care about? That's also Bhakti Yoga. It isn't only about lighting your ritual candle, doing your meditation, doing devotional chants and prayers. It's about how committed am I to the relationships I'm in. And sometimes not enough. Maybe sometimes you get to say, you know what, it's taken too much. That I'm not that committed. I need to let this go. And other times it's like, I am deeply committed. So those are also those choices, skillful choices that we need to learn to make for ourselves. Bhakti Yoga. So it's the care and the depth of your concern. What's written on your heart? Like Hanuman, the monkey god, was written, Ram and Sita, which is another way for the divine. So what's written on your heart? What are you most concerned about and most committed to? And then towards the end, Krishna is teaching Arjuna, and he's talking to him, and he's saying, listen to me. And if we go back to thinking that this is symbolically our higher self and our ego and personal self, then Krishna is saying, listen to your higher wisdom. Shut the noise out. Take the pause. Do the yoga and listen to your own inner guidance. Listen to you. Listen to your Krishna self. It's quite beautiful, I think. So listen to your higher self, your own authentic voice. And I love this and I don't like it. I remember often during teachings, I'm like, oh, really? And then sometimes I go, oh, this is freeing. Krishna never says to Arjuna, do A, B, C, and everything's going to be fine. He says, do A, B, C, and create the best version of your life. And I can't make any promises because while you're making the best version of your life, everybody else is too. So it's it's that entanglement and that implication that this whole thing of we're all in this together. So it's really not the point of the text either to say that everything will work out perfectly, but he's also really encouraging him. Krishna's also encouraging Arjuna all through the text we know to do his dharma. And the way I've learned it through my teacher is that the Indian mind totally believes in dharma, totally believes in purpose and meaning. And as we know, India is not an easy place to live. So purpose and meaning doesn't mean that, there's like hundreds of thousands of dollars coming in and we're in CEO positions. It's like coming from the inside out. And so they believe that do the work you were here to do. Like I remember when my mom was ill at one point and she said to me, this isn't my time yet to go. And I said, oh, how come? How do you know that? And she said, because my work here is not done. And it wasn't. She lived another 2 years. She was not done. And when she was done, when her work was over, she was done. I think that's really interesting. When you do come here and do the work you were meant to do. And if you want to label it as purpose in the contemporary world, I think that's great. So now I'm going to just try to tie it up again. And to complete the circle, we look at the title of the Bhagavad Gita and the first word, which is on the field of Dharma. And Bhagavad, the Bhagavad Gita, Bhaga means to prosper and to flourish. And Gita means song. And then Dharma means what we just have been talking about. Doing the work you're here to do. Becoming the best version of yourself. And so what Krishna is saying that if you do your Dharma, you have the capability to create a life that sings like a song. I think that's so beautiful. So while we may not think that we're artists or creators, we are, because the Gita tells us that we could create a life that sings like a song. And we then are the authors of it. We're the creators of it. We're the musicians of it. We're the artists of it. And that doesn't mean we're going to not stumble and falter and have mentors and coaches and friends and accountability buddies. It means that we know who we are at our core essence. We know we're here to create a life of meaning and purpose. And we're going to do the best that we're capable of doing. And if we keep doing the yoga, you know what I mean, all of them, not just on the mat, then we are doing what the Bhagavad Gita and Krishna is encouraging us to do. Sometimes he hit Arjuna over with the head. Sometimes he wasn't very nice to him. Sometimes he was kind to him. But he tried to get to him in all ways to say, do your Dharma. And one thing that he also has said to him that I thought was really lovely and beautiful, and especially touched my heart because of this whole legacy idea, is he cautions Arjuna, don't wait till the end of your life to think of me or to call on me. Do it through your whole life. And to me, that's learning to live your legacy every day. If we hold connection to spirit, if we hold and we're in communion with our higher self, to God, to source, the goddess, divine feminine power, which I think will be rising even more as we come out of this. If we could stay in alignment with that, falter but come on back, then we are living our legacy every day. Then we are calling that Krishna self in every day. So close your eyes. If your feet are on the floor, I want you to feel them again. Feel the heaviness, feel the earth. And have a call to presence, to your own deep inner wisdom. Many of you took the online course, so I want to just bring that idea in again. What does legacy mean to you? And maybe it's even deepened as we've come through these times and as we are in this time. And how can these teachings deepen our understanding and deepen our connection to our wisdom self, our legacy self? That we may live every day with the highest intention for the graceful unfolding of our hearts. And trusting that spirit will lift us when we falter. Take a deep, full inhale through your whole entire body. Let that exhale be quiet and soft. And collectively, I ask that we set this intention, and you could do it in your own words, write it down if you want to open your eyes and peek and write in your journals. But have a group intention, a collective intention, that in these times that we're living in right now, and as we move through them and on the other side of the portal, that these teachings, these deep foundational teachings will continue to unfold within us, deepen our understanding, give us solace and strength and wisdom. And then engage the bhakti, engage the love and the commitment to live your legacy every day. To stay connected to the truth of who you are. Continue to focus on your breath now, inhaling fully, expanding your mind and expanding your inner body. And remembering that this path of yoga is ever unfolding. Then simply place your right hand on your heart center and your left hand on your belly, this kind of solar plexus and pelvic region. And breathe in so your hands are actually lifted up with your inhale. And keep your inner body swelling with the spirit of love. And with your exhale, stay steady. Then join your hands in front of your heart. Feel the right hand pressing gently but firmly into the left. And as you press firmly, expand the inner body even a little bit more. 1%, 2%, 3% more. And then together we'll close with a collective Om inhale. Om.